My name's Lim Friedlander. I've lived in Moses Lake since 1971. I'm a sinful servant of Jesus Christ. I'm a Colville member, and I wanted to play an honor song, being that this is an honoring. And usually at a ceremony, we usually honor our elders, our veterans. And I don't know what kind of escort Chief Moses' half-son had when he left this place, but he's left his heart here. And I'm just so glad to be here. And one of his descendants here, Elder Friedlander, is one of his ancestors. So I'm going to play this song. This song is usually played just like the national anthem for, football games, basketball games, whatever kind of game you go to, or whatever kind of gathering whenever they sing the national anthem. Well, this is our national anthem. And so I'll play this song for you. And I did have a speech, but someone just woke me up. Now I'm going to give that speech now that someone's... Thank you.
At this time, we, the Black White Singers, would like to dedicate this veteran song to all the veterans throughout the United States and Canada. And we certainly thank you for your services. Thank you. I want to apologize for speaking to you with my sunglasses on. We're not supposed to wear sunglasses when we're public speaking.
And I want to thank Lexi and the committee for letting this happen. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Lexi. I'm the Executive Director for the Downtown Moses Lake Association. I wanted to first thank all of you for being here today and for dealing with our rescheduling and the heat, and I gave you as much shade as I could. This cooler has water in it if you need any water. So today we're here because in 2019, the board of the Downtown Moses Lake Association proposed the idea of designing commemorative banners of Chief Moses to be displayed around Sinkiuse Square. The intention of this was that the board didn't feel that people really knew what Sinkiuse Square was here for and what its intention was, and they felt it was really important to share that history and have it be very present and visible for everyone to see. So they worked with the Colville Business Council to design the banners and display Chief Moses in the most accurate, significant way that they could. So at the end of the ceremony today, we're going to unveil the 6 banners that are surrounding Sinkiuse Square, and we'll get to see the new Chief Moses banners. Before then, we're going to hear from Council Member Karen Condon. We're going to hear from Council Chairman Rodney Costin, a direct descendant of Chief Moses, Andy Joseph, and a direct descendant of Chief Moses, Barbara Aretha. After they speak, we're going to hear from our city manager, Allison Williams, and our mayor, David Colonel. So we're going to first start with Councilwoman Karen Condon.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Karen Condon. I'm the chair of the Tribe's Culture Committee. Rodney's not here yet. He's running a little late. So I'll go ahead and start by welcoming all of you. When he gets here, we will give him the opportunity to speak. He'll have a lot of background information to share with you. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and read a prepared statement that we made with regard to Chief Moses, and then I will introduce Andy, and then we'll go from there. Chief Moses, leader of the Sinkiuse or Columbia Tribe of Indians, was born in 1829 near what is now the city of Wenatchee. Moses was the half-son, the chief of the tribe, and between the robes, Karnitsa. Moses' name was originally Lolukun, headband. Moses was known as a brave warrior. During a buffalo hunt, his father was killed in a battle with another tribe. Moses' brother assumed leadership of the Sinkiuse. Moses opposed non-native people taking the traditional lands of his people. Nevertheless, he attended the treaty negotiations of 1855. Before the treaties could be ratified by Congress, prospectors and settlers broke the terms of the treaties. Events soon led to war with the United States. Moses' leadership skills grew during these wars and in subsequent reservation negotiations. Moses emerged as one of the most influential tribal leaders in the Columbia Plateau. He ultimately took up residence on the Colville Reservation north of his homelands, but spent most of his time between Moses Coulee and his village on Rocky Ford by a lake now known as Moses Lake. He was an influential leader on the Colville Reservation, assisting exiled Chief Moses and his Wallowa band of Nez Perce to return to the Pacific Northwest. Chief Moses died in 1899 at the age of 70, recognized as a fierce warrior, skilled negotiator, diplomat, and a powerful leader of his people. I want to thank the city of Moses Lake for taking such time and care in developing a banner to honor Chief Moses. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Andy Joseph. Oh, Rodney's here. He's the chairman. So I'm going to introduce Rodney. He's been the chair for the last couple of years, and it is an honor to have him here, and I'm glad he made it. Rodney?
Heel Hest. Sinkiuse-Columbia, tip you left now, Titska. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Rodney Costin, and I'm presently the chairman for the Colville Confederated Tribes. very thankful that I could be here this morning. I apologize, I'm running late. I didn't realize there was construction going on just south of here, but it's good to be here today. I just want to thank the city of Moses Lake for putting all of this together and to do this land recognition for the Sinkiuse-Columbia, which is one of the 12 tribes that were moved on to the Colville Reservation. Karen gave you a pretty good history about Chief Moses and his people. All of this country here, where we're at today, this was his country from all the way from about, Cheney all the way down towards Vantage. And, he was a very prolific and very well-known leader of our people. He was at all of the treaty meetings. And, one of the things that in reading about the history, he always wanted to stay on his own traditional homelands here in this country. He says, "I fancy this is my country." And during those times in the federal government, they were negotiating treaties with all the tribes in Indian country and the plateau and this part of Washington state. And for our tribes, the 12 tribes that make up the Colville Reservation, almost every one of our tribes were at these treaty hearings, these treaty meetings, especially the treaty meeting down at Walla Walla for the Treaty of 1855. Some of our tribes signed this treaty, and then others didn't sign. At the time, they were supposed to have had a meeting up here in Spokane, near Spokane, which did take place, with Governor Stevens. And, at that meeting, many of our tribes began negotiating a treaty. This treaty, although it was never approved through Congress, and many of our tribes, our tribal leaders at the time, refused to sign treaties. Chief Moses always stated that he wanted to remain in his own traditional homelands. Although they attempted to negotiate with him to cede these lands, and these lands that we're on were actually ceded in the Treaty of 1855. But many of our leaders during the Indian Claims Commission in the late 1920s, they approached Congress because they felt they never relinquished their rights to their lands, including Chief Moses. And so these lands, many of us here, we look at this part of the state, and for us as Indian people, we know the resources that are here in this country. These resources that were very important to our people historically. All around this country, there are many well-documented cultural sites, traditional cultural properties, archaeological sites, sacred sites, some very sacred sites that are very close to this town in Moses Lake and all throughout this country. Our tribe and our leaders, even before my time, chose not to draw a lot of attention to these sites because we really feared exploitation or what could happen to them. But this land, it's really awesome to see the city of Moses Lake to do this land acknowledgement, to acknowledge Chief Moses and his people, that this is their ancestral homelands, this beautiful place, this place that has so many different resources that, our children, we still bring them to these places. Many times you might see our people out there in the landscape because there's a lot of edible foods, edible roots, There's a lot of resources. There's all kinds of resources in this country, in this place they call shrub steppe areas in, this part of the plateau. And so I feel really good to be here and to, with each one of you here, this history needs to be shared and it needs to be told. And all of the tribes on the Colville Reservation and all our Indian people who resided all across the plateau, their interactions with each other, the Wenatchee people, the Pisquaos, the Palouse, the Nez Perce, all of these tribes that Chief Moses, had very strong relationships too, because he was a very well-known leader at the time. He spent time down in Lapway, and he learned the Christian faith. And he also, I was told, learned the Nez Perce language. So when Chief Joseph and the Palouse people were brought down into Indian country down in Oklahoma, Chief Moses assisted in having Joseph and his people move back up here into the Pacific Northwest. These are some of the relationships and just the brief of the history of our people. This history that, isn't being taught in our schools today. And even though that we had the history bill that was passed in the state of Washington, I know it's a lot of difficulty because this was an unfunded mandate. And so now that's up to the schools and the tribes to be able to come up with those resources to develop that curriculum of this history, of this rich history of our tribes. And I know that's a challenge because I've met with many schools. Our people, our tribes extend all the way down into the northern part of Oregon and then all the way up into Canada. And, in the times I've met with OSPI in Olympia and looking at all the school districts across the state of Washington, about a third of them are attributed to the tribes that are presently on the Colville Reservation. And so we do everything that we can to get the history out and work with our schools, but that's a challenge for us as well. But when we can work together and acknowledge, like we are doing here today, the people who lived here since time immemorial, that is a very good step, very good first step in the right direction to acknowledge the history of this land. There's so much that we could share with you today, and I hope and I pray that in our future that we can find a way that, to develop these materials, because it's really important to our young people. To our young people to have that strong identity, to know that relationship of the lands of where their ancestors came from. It makes them feel better that when they drive through this country and they see these signs and they know that there's this place here called now Sinkiuse Square. And you think about all of our elders and our ancestors, not just Chief Moses, but all of his people and all of our elders that we grew up with, who had stories about this place, about these places. There's just, as I said, a very rich history here today, and I really look forward to that, working with the Moses Lake School District, and that we can begin really offering more of that curriculum that we need to do to teach about the culture and the history of our people. Not just the Squax Chinook, but all of the tribes on the Colville Reservation. As I said, that history belongs to all of us, and with all of the tribes too that Moses, interacted with and had relationships with. There's just so many different parts of this story that we could tell. One of his brothers was actually politically married up to the Seattle tribe, which is in western Washington, and many people aren't aware of that our people have a lot of relatives even that far across the state. So I'm really glad that I can be here today. I'm not a Moses descendant myself. I descend from the Chief Joseph band at Nez Perce, as well as the Palouse, and from my father from the Okanagan and from the lakes. But the Moses people and Nez Perce and Palouse were very closely affiliated. Even when I was growing up and we'd go to our longhouse, many of the Moses people would attend there, especially, I always remember, Lucy Covington and her sister attending there as well. And they'd always especially come there when we would have our feasts, and especially our berry feast and root feast, and right now that's a real important time of the year because it is our berry feast that our people are celebrating today and praying for all of these resources. So, Imakis Ketsia, Yokokolo. I got the huge honor to introduce Andy Joseph. He is a direct descendant of Kamak and the Moses family, and he's been probably our longest standing council. And so it's really good. I'm glad that he is here today with his aunt, because I'm sure his aunt and Andy could probably be here spend a lot of time with you as well. And I'm really glad that he can be here to share some of his knowledge of his ancestry.
Thank you, Rodney. Alimta squiskin wikinchin is biaya you hookin is squeezed. It makes my heart happy to see everyone here today. Badger is my name in the language my dad taught me. Not very far from here, there was a site where Chief Moses set up camp, and all the other tribes that are around us, the Coeur d'Alene, the Spokane, and Palouse, and Yakima, Wenatchee, they would all come and gather, and they would barter, they would trade, because this area had so many different foods. Rodney talked about the roots. And right now, the berries are ripe on they might even, because of that heat wave, they might even be drying out on some of the trees that are here. That in our language, it's a sia. Up in our mountains, we're picking the husk, that's the huckleberries. And anyway, at that campsite, Chief Moses was known as a horseman as well, and they had races, and they gambled, betting on their horses, different things that they had with their foods to trade, or if it was a salmon, or just anything you can think of to live on back in the day. He was known as a buffalo hunter, and bring back the buffalo robes and stuff like that for trade. And anyway, this is a really awesome honoring because of this part of the community here where you can do business. And anyway, I just really want to thank the community here for putting something like this up here in honor of my great-great-great-grandfather. One of his wives lived to be 118 years old, and she could climb on a horse probably up into her 90s to go up in the mountains and pick huckleberries. And she grew that old because of her mother lived off of the land, off of the foods that we gathered in all this area. It's physical work. And it's so if you could imagine, as she was growing inside her mother with all the best foods in the world, all that salmon and deer and buffalo, things like that, that's healthy for us. So this land is really important. There's different areas. Sometimes we have hard access to get to some of those foods. We don't mean any disrespect for it, because we're actually taught to respect everything that we take up. Moses, he passed down his regalia through his daughter that was from marriage from Chief Alahai, and she married Lukash Kamayakin's son, and there was my great grandmother Nellie Kamayakin. She was raised by Moses because her folks died at a young age, so she carried the Moses name. And then my grandfather George Freelander is from that, and my mom Geraldine. So that's how the bloodline comes down through my family. I would like Rodney said, I could probably talk a long time, but now it's hot and people need to get on with the business. I'm hoping that our tribe can do more business down here, and that you take part in our our gas station, truck stop. That's hopefully just the beginning of something that could become even better for all of our people. Wai'ihi, Wailimlim, thank you. I'm going to introduce my Auntie Barb now, and she's pretty sharp on our history as well. Auntie Barb.
Thank you everybody for being here. I come here a lot. That mirror on the wall is beautiful. Moses had a hat on. He didn't have a roach. The person that designed that, the artist, I asked her when I came to dedicate this one that she changed it. And I haven't been close up to see, but anyway, we're talking about Chief Joseph. He was born on the Wenatchee River many, many years ago. I don't know the exact time or date, but his mother was Anita, chief woman. His father was Osham, half-son. And half-son was the name that explains his Indian name. He lived with his parents along the river, and then they come back here, come to camp along the lake, and he grew up, and so they'd come back again and again. This area is means a lot to our people. Means a lot to the family. This area, Chief Moses, when he was married, had a wife that was from Chief Alhai. And he had a wife from the Nespers, Kamuli. And it goes on, and his, when you heard about, Andy was talking about my grandmother, Nellie Moses Kamayakan. She was her Indian name. That name I carry, it's gone on to 5 generations now. All our people have Indian names that when they get old enough and people give them a name. My first Indian name was Anita, but when my granddaughter started dancing, I took my name and gave it to her, then I took my grandmother's name. That was her mother's name. And her mother's name. It went back, and it's a name we do not want to, forget. We want to keep it with us, always. After, Moses got old enough, his father was getting treaties all over the place. He couldn't read. He said, I don't know what this is. He'd tell his son, it's a piece of paper. He'd throw it away. Finally, he said, I'm going to send my son to school. So he's sending down to Spalding Mission, where there was a mission Indian school. Marcus Whitman was one of the teachers there. And while they were there about 2 years, he was there maybe the first year, then Chief Joseph, young Joseph, came to the mission for the same reason. because their fathers told them you have to read these things that they're giving us, these papers. We can't read. So they went to learn to read so they could find out what these treaties were telling them. Joseph and Moses became friends there. That's where they learned each other's language, because they wanted to converse with their own family and let others know, the languages. After they were there a while, the military, the cavalry, had dumped off a bunch of blankets for the children at the mission. And these blankets were infested with smallpox. Half of the children died. And Moses and Joseph talked, and they said, we're going to get sick too and die like the rest. We're going home. So Joseph took off and went to his Walawa country. Moses went to his Wenatchee country. And they walked. They didn't have a horse. They were brought there when the government came and told them that they had this school down there. And so they were helping them out with blankets. And so many people passed away there. I believe it was some of the Umatilla Nez Perce that finally got tired of it, and they massacred Marcus Whitman and his family. They said, no more will we allow them to kill our children. They told us to bring them here, and now they're dead and dying. And then after that, Moses, when he got home, he went with his dad to Montana to hunt buffalo. First time they went, the Blackfeet were really mean to them, shooting at them, killing them. So the next time they went, they got the Spokanes, Coeur d'Alenes, Flatheads, and they all went in a big band together so they'd have more support, and the Blackfeet wouldn't bother them. So they were hunting, and so they had camp and up there in the mountains, and they were shooting at him, and Moses was there, and he got shot, and he, before he died, he was dying, he told his warriors, don't take me home to bury me here on this ground. I want you to bury me here, and don't tell anybody where I'm buried. He said, when you leave, you ride your horseback over that grave so nobody will know where I am. And that was what they were instructed to do. And so they came home, and they had their buffalo hides and their meat, and they were really happy after that. But they had the sad news of his dying. So it was old Moses. And so when his son came home, his mother was chief woman. She told him, now you're the chief. And so he was made chief then. And he stayed as chief for a long time. And his brother, one of his brothers died in the Columbia River. It was another tragedy, so that's the reason, I think he was older. But, these stories that were told to me by my grandmother. My grandmother was a daughter of Chief Moses' daughter. That was his only daughter left. The other children had died from sickness or something. And so she had married Chief Kamayakan's son, Lucas. And he had sent them to Wenatchee country area again to go get some food, because at the time they were in up at Nespilo on the new reservation they had sent them to. And so when they were down there, they camped on the way by close to the turn towards Quincy anyway. And they were camped there, and they heard riders coming, and so my grandma's mother took her and here in brush, just like a brush around here, and told her, you stay there. You do not leave. No matter what you hear, you stay there. You might hear loud noises and screaming and fighting, but you stay there. When we're through, afterwards, I'll come and get you. And she stayed there all night. Nobody came to get her. And so Grandma said that she started crying. She was worried, didn't know what was going to happen. And so finally, she heard horseback riders coming. And she said, "Oh God, somebody's coming." She peeked, couldn't tell who it was because they were too far away. When they got close, oh no, it looks like my grandpa. And so it was Chief Moses and his warriors. He had sent them after food to go get flour, coffee, and sugar, and many other things that they needed at their home site and their field. And so when she saw her grandfather coming, she ran out and he called her by her Indian name. He used to tease her, Tuklix, Tuita, come here. And so she ran up there. They took her home, and he told his people that he said what happened, that his daughter and his son-in-law were both murdered by someone, and that he was going to have to take care of my grandmother. And so he said, "My wife has gone now; she's dead. So I'm going back to her father and see if he's got another daughter." Sure enough, he had Mary, and she was a small woman, just about like I am, and he was big, And so anyway, he told Lohan, she said, what happened, that his daughter, was dead, and that his son-in-law, both of them were gone, and he needed somebody to help with his granddaughter. So he gave Chief Moses his daughter Mary. She was the youngest, and she's the one that did all the beadwork for him. And later, she made him 7 outfits to wear, one every single day. He did not have to dress in the same thing day after day after day. And so anyway, Mary Moses lived there until she was 118, 19. And she's buried at the Chief Moses Cemetery. That's what we always called it for years. Someone didn't like it. They said, call Chief Moses. It's Little Nespelum now. And I said, no. I said, you call it that. I call it what it is. Anyway, that went on for a while, And then, I was alive when Chief Moses, Mary Moses was alive. And she was a little old lady, And it was my job to take her by the hand to water and feed the chickens. I'd get the water and I'd go in and get her until I'd come to grandma, great grandma. And so we'd go and feed the chickens. I'd get some wheat for her and she'd go, all her chickens. And we had about 100 turkeys, speckled and white. And so we fed those, and I knew she was getting tired because she was, 100 plus at the time when I was 6 or 7. And I brought her back to the house. And she was a kind woman. And, like if I'd get in trouble with my mom and dad, I'd run over to her and she'd cuddle me and tell them, "Don't touch her. She's my baby." And I was so happy that, you stay here with me. So I sit by her, until we could go outside or do something. It was, memories I have of that great grandma of mine. She, when she passed, they didn't tell me she passed. And I was in the house. I tried to go through the door, go in there and see what they were doing. And there was all kinds of women around her. And I thought, oh my God, something, she's sick or what? So I went and told Mom. She said, "Shh, don't say a word." And so I'm going to fix them. I went clear around the house, went towards where her bed was. And it was right in front of this window. She had a little metal bed. And it was quite, all kinds of, it was small, just bitter, just right. And they had her on there, and they were cleaning her, getting her ready for burial. And I didn't know that. I went, Grandma, Twitter, and she didn't move when I asked. Finally, that my grandma brought me inside and told me, "You'll never see her again. We're getting her ready. She's gone." Oh no, my poor Twitter. Anyway, that's they had a burial dinner, camp's great big kitchen outside. I remember it because I tried to stay out of the way because I wasn't one of the cooks. I was too young yet. Anyway, after she was buried, our people lived there. And when Moses was married to his wife, they used to come here. And their families, maybe he had, one from the Nesperts. And their family would come. And one from the Spokane. They'd all be here. All the tribes would come. And they try to get here about root digging time. Just over the hill a ways, we always went to get our roots. And I know because I used to go with Grandma and the rest of the family there. We dig our roots and put them away for the family for the year to come. And I remember when my Aunt Lucy Covington was sick in bed and dying. She said, "Do we have any roots in our fridge?" I said, "Oh, yes, we do." "Okay," she said, "I need some of those roots." So I cook them up and get them ready to feed her. And she'd feed herself, but I did the preparation. And, that's something in your heart. When you have something from long ago and from your family, you want them. And so that was, there were many roots and many berries, all put away, taken care of. Some dried. It's like grind salmon and grind deer meat. When Moses was taken from his land up in Wenatchee country, the cavalry came and told him that he couldn't live there anymore. They had to move to the reservation. So he got his people together, and they all trekked down from Wenatchee down across the Columbia, come along all the way up. They got to Palisades, and they camped there. And the women found more roots there to gather and put away. And so the military saw them up there, God, what are they doing? They can't stay here. And so they came and told Moses, "You get out of here by noon, or each one of you will be knee deep in blood." And so Moses hurriedly got the woman out of the root patches, and they packed up and they started back to Nespelem. They journeyed all along the Columbia. They cut across towards Cartar, Omak Lake area. They got that far, and some of the people said they were tired. And that was a good place to live. The Condons and Georges and many others stayed up in that country area. And Moses journeyed back to Nespelem with his people. And he stayed at the old house where there's no house there, but the campsite where he used to camp. The women had pits buried with food in them. They had dried salmon, dried deer meat, huckleberries, dried corn, all kinds of dried choke cherries. Everything was dried. They had them in corn husk bags, and they put them in the ground, and they had them covered with fur boughs underneath and over them. They took care of them and keep them there. The women had done that some time ago, and Moses didn't know he was going to go back. When they got there, they had food, and they were starving coming back all the way because they didn't have any food. They didn't carry enough to last them a week or so, And they got there and they ate, and the tribes all camped. Moses had his teepee in the middle, and the Wenatchees on one side, and all the other tribes all camped around him. They had their own sites but they camped around his the Wenatchee's area. And when they did that, years later, remember I told you Moses and Joseph had gone to school together to read and write. Joseph was in Oklahoma, sent to prison down there. With a lot of the people died there, and I think he came back with 260 so. And Joseph wrote to Moses and told him, brother, they won't let me go to my old home site. They think I might go back to war. He said, I'm through with war forever. I want to come home in peace and live with you in your country just like mine. I want to live there. So Joseph came up. They brought him on train, and Joseph met him. And he had told the Indian agent at the time that he said, I'll take care of him. He will not fight. I'll keep him at peace with our people. And so he did. And he met the train that brought Joseph in, and they all came out to this field. And when they came, they camped along outskirts, and the people said, we don't want him. We're scared of him. He might start another battle, and we don't want that. And so that kept up for a while, and Moses told he stays. They wanted him to go. He stays. So Moses gave him another campsite along the Nespelem Creek, just a little ways from where their camps were. And he camped there forever, that's where Joseph moved to. And after the Allotment Act, many of the Nez Perce Kalus that were there got their allotments. And Moses died before the allotments came in. And I don't know if you know what allotment is for the government when they tell you to go someplace. This is yours here, that's hers. They gave allotments out to a lot of people. And Moses didn't get one because he had passed. But his wife, Mary, was there. She was still alive. So she has 70-some acres of land up there where my Aunt Lucy lived and where I was born. Anyway, I'm getting to a long story. I better kind of tone it down here. So, after the Allotment Act, Mary Moses finally passed, and then I told you about her and about the Chief Moses. When he came here, all these tribes would come, and they'd all get together, just have fun, just like brothers, all together. And they'd have dinners and eat, and some of them would bring, trade, some would, just come to be there, just to see family and relatives. Because they'd go back to their own tribes and not see them again for maybe another year or another, season or something. And also, just like I was saying, Moses used to take the women down here because of the roots being so close. And out here where the sage was, it's a little bit too dry for roots. And, like from here, you go down there where the black camas are, and different camises. But anyway, like I was saying, they were so many tribes here camped, and they have horse races and stick games and many other things they do. Not only for kinship, but for joy and just being family, just like we are here today. Grandma said, always remember, we're all related, each and every one of us. The reason I asked that my nephew, Andy, come and speak, the only ones, blood relatives remaining are my sisters, 3 sisters, 1 brother, and myself. Their children, and their grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. We are the only ones that are left that Moses left. But we have many, many, many Wenatchees. Just like Karen, our sister over here, is a Wenatchee. Lenny is a Wenatchee. And so many others of you here are Wenatchee people. And just like this man up here, he signed the Moses Agreement. It was ratified in 1982, July 2nd. And that was it. Many people said, why did he sign that agreement? Why didn't he do a treaty? Because he didn't want what the treaty had. He wanted what the people wanted. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you. God be with each of you.
I want to thank each of you for speaking and being with us today and doing the drive down here. Next, we're going to hear from our city manager, Allison Williams, and then our mayor, David Colonel, and then we're going to do the unveiling of our banners. So, Allison.
Well, good afternoon, and I am just honored to be here today in this place and the city manager, which is a new city compared to the history that we just heard, 1938. And I am the manager that is hired by the city council to carry out the work of the city. And I feel honored to stand here today and to hear the voices of this place and what this place meant to the indigenous peoples. And I hope that in my work with this city and with our city council that we can continue to honor this place and bring out that spirit in the work that we do. I think the forethought, actually this place, Sinkiuse Square, was brought forward by the work of the Downtown Moses Lake Association, who brought forward the idea of dedicating this space as a park in the late 80s. And then the city's Parks Board under Jerry Tout developed the name for the place. And so that was in the 90s. And so new in regard to the history that you just heard. And I'm thankful that our Parks Board had the foresight to think about this place and the naming of this place to bring it back into the center of our community. And I just look forward to carrying out the work. And again, I'm just honored to be here with representatives of the tribes and to recognize the importance of this place to our peoples. And I will now pass it off to our mayor, David Colonel.
Just to let you all know, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm very brief. First of all, I'd like to thank all the tribal people, tribal council that came to this unveiling. We appreciate them coming, and it's an honor to be a part of this unveiling here for these commemorative banners. Also, to be in the presence of a direct descendant of Chief Moses is an honor. This event sparked me to a desire to learn more about our city's namesake, and I've learned more about Chief Moses in the last couple of weeks than I knew in the last 40 years. He was a great leader and an advocate for his tribe throughout his life, and I'm proud that our city is named after him. In the early 80s, as a physician, I had the honor of knowing Bob Ruby, who wrote extensively on the Northwest Indians, and Chief Moses was a big part of that history, and obviously that history's been detailed. But little did I know then that 40 years later I'd be reading excerpts from his books to prepare for this ceremony. So again, on behalf of the City of Moses Lake, we wish to thank the MLBA for these banners and for what they represent, and we want to thank the tribe for being here again. Thank you.
So there are 6 banners around Sinkiuse Square. There's the 3 here, there's 2 behind you, and then there's 1 right here. So if you guys will go ahead and unveil the banners, please.